Welcome to Another News. I'm Jeff Brady. We continue our conversation with Harry Hubbard, but move from the topic of the ancient repository at the southern Illinois cave site to evidence of a cavernous entrance at the North Pole that could lead to the inner Earth. The evidence is based on Harry Hubbard's presentation titled Lazaria Map Collection. Together with his research colleague Paul Shafranki, Harry combs through key maps from the 16th and 17th centuries showing evolution of coastlines, anomalous islands that may have sunk into the Arctic Ocean, and the 4 islands at the North Pole, separated by northward flowing rivers. We'll hear accounts from the 17th century explorers describing regions at the top of the physical North Pole. This evidence has been engraved and printed by cartographers hundreds of years ago. It's a matter of translating German, Latin, and other early script and taking the time to read the detailed descriptions, and that's the work that Harry and Paul have done. Harry Hubbard joins us again to talk about this presentation, the Hollow Earth, and early map references to Atlantis. Harry, welcome back to Another News.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you.
We've talked about the possibilities of a hollow Earth and its North Pole entrance in a past show, but it was cast with the strong doubt that such a region existed. Can you tell listeners about the strategy in presenting maps to reveal information such as evolving coastlines, stories of explorations, and bypassing some of the censorship by institutions?
Well, when I put that map video together, I really didn't have a strategy. I had all these maps, and I kind of wanted to just film them as a record for either insurance purposes or historical purposes down the road. And I thought, well, I can take these maps and put together a story if I use a couple of books to go along with it, and also some books from the 1800 printed material that we can actually read. And then I solicited Paul to help me with that, and he chose to speak in a German accent. He thought that perhaps people would find it more authentic, so to speak, if he used a European accent, which he grew up in Europe. So that's what we did, and put the story together. I must tell you that as far as I can remember, the Smithsonian Institute was actually predicated on the idea that there was a hollow Earth, that was actually initiated and funded originally to discover whether or not the Earth was hollow or had an entrance to it. And I don't know that they ever did one way or the other. I don't know. So that was, just kind of left hanging. But as it all indicates, it's quite possible, I would say. There are millions and millions of people that have determined in their reasoning that it is entirely possible that the Earth is hollow, that there is a world down inside the Earth. I don't know where it originates from, but I think there's even some reference to it in the Bible. But there are a lot of people that believe the book is not closed on the issue, and I guess we kind of with that map video, just kind of exploited that a little more by showing these old maps from the 1500s, 1600s, and through the old books. And the main book that has like the Schlaraffenland map in it, you can see it at many public libraries. It was a huge book, very expensive. It was called Mapmaker's Art by John Goss. And you can go and look at it, and they're all right there. It's not like it's a secret. I just put it all together in a video that became a cult classic.
Sometimes when you do these types of presentations, you don't know how it's going to take off, and I find that really interesting. Were you aware of the Hollow Earth and the controversy around it before you saw these maps?
Oh, sure. I was fortunate enough to have a father that was a reader, and he studied a lot, and we always had books around the house, interesting stuff. My father was into phenomena, and he got me into phenomena as well, just things that happen that don't make sense. And my father was a big fan of Admiral Richard E. Byrd. And he had told me when I was a teenager that he was actually listening to the radio when Admiral Byrd was flying into the Arctic hole with the airplane. My dad had studied the logistics of the airplane, what they had done to make it survive at certain wind speeds at minus 170 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit or so. And he was listening to the radio. I can't remember if it was ABC that was broadcasting it over the radio or not. I believe it was ABC. And they cut him off. See, Admiral Byrd was giving updates like every couple of hours or so, or whatever. They would just pipe right into him, and he would be broadcast over the radio live. And my father would be listening to those, and he was talking about seeing elephants running on a grassy plain. That he was explaining how the compass that they had, I guess the compasses at that time that he had enclosed in a glass sphere, was surrounded by liquid, and that the compass pointed straight up, and then it flipped over backwards. So the end showing north actually pointed to the rear of the plane. And so he knew at that point that they had crossed over the magnetic point of the North Pole.
Wow.
And it explains that in these old maps from the 1600s and 1500s, that once you get to a certain point, the compasses are no good. You have to just reverse entirely. The north of the compass points south, and south is pointing north, and that's why those maps had a meridian line. If you look at them, they all have a meridian line that goes straight down, I believe, into like Canada, that you're supposed to use as a navigational tool once your compass starts freaking out. And today, accident, disaster, or calamity, there'd be no way to find the person or the downed airplane, from what I understand and what I've seen on YouTube of modern-day pilots, that they say that they're not supposed to go there because there's just no way to find anything using a compass. At the end of that video, Laseria Map Collection, I just show, it's not a map, I show pictures taken from NASA, and I believe 1969, from a weather satellite or something, and it shows the outline of the rivers in those four islands, the Bargos Islands. And there were other pictures online that I had seen that were taken in 1965. And there are many, since then, satellite photographs that show, that's like a break in the clouds, the outline of the Bargos Islands. And in one of my videos, I found the Bargos Islands listed as the Burgos Islands, written about 2,000 years ago with Pliny the Elder. He writes about the Burgos Islands at the North Pole, the 4 islands of Burgos Islands at the North Pole. So evidently it's been known for a long time.
If you could describe what the Bargos Islands are for listeners, because it could be, for some listening, the first time they've heard of that.
It's described even on the maps, the maps from the mid-1500s all the way up to the late 1600s, I suppose, or even beyond that, as 4 islands that are like, they appear such as like you took a pie and cut it across 4 ways, and then took a chunk out of the middle of it. They're separated by 4 rivers. That's what they call the Bargos Islands, or the Burgos Islands. So that's and in the center of the Bargos Islands on these maps, these old maps, it's indicated that there's a deep, dark canyon surrounded by black stone.
Is the water flowing into the inner Earth, as some descriptions point out?
I'm not sure. I don't know. I've never been there, but the maps indicate that there's that one of them has a real strong flow that never freezes. Beyond that, there's just many things that are kind of still mysterious. There were a couple of things also written on those maps, like the Menachar Order. The Menachar Order. Who in the world were those guys? Was that some kind of Catholic Jesuit group that spent time up there? Was it a German group that spent time up there? Were they Dutch? Who knows? You know. So and these people were there long enough to know when it was dark all day long and when it was light all day long. They knew like it was dark most of the time in the wintertime. In the winter it was just, you know, pitch black, I suppose. A lot. It tells about it in these old maps, meaning to me that they had been there. And it describes the people and different things like that, the maps do. The people who live there, the inhabitants, what they eat, what they wear.
Can you talk about how the navigators learned about the Northwest Passage? That's the Baffin Islands region above Canada. From past exploration and map making, there was a very interesting evolution of learning where those islands are through hundreds of years of map making.
The video starts out showing maps done in the early 1800s, and I come up through to about the late 1800s, early 1900s, and then we jump back to the 1500s and 1600s. As you're watching the video, it kind of is bouncing along, and then it starts getting a little more twisted, a little bit more twisted, and then you realize, like, whoa, wait, where are these guys going with this? So it appears that the Northwest Passage was actually codified in the probably 1870s or so, but then we go back